War Eagle Auburn family, and it is a great week to be an Auburn Tiger because we are in the middle, starting tomorrow. Well, not in the middle. We're starting tomorrow, getting ready for College World Series action, and your Auburn Tigers are a part of that action. We've been talking about it a lot here on this channel lately, obviously doing post-game shows and even doing some edited videos talking about what you need to know about the College World Series. But now it's time to get down to brass tacks. It's now time to start talking about a preview and maybe even some predictions. And that's what we're going to do here on this live stream tonight. Before we get started, though, I want to remind you of a couple of things. Make sure that you do like that. Hit that like button if you do enjoy this type of content. Share it out on social media with the retweet button. Share it into Facebook groups. And right now, make sure that you do our little check-in period and post where you're watching from, city, state, international, all of that stuff, so we know who's here hanging out with us tonight. But while y'all are doing that, I have to introduce someone who's here to join us tonight to talk about this particular topic, someone that used to do a podcast for us related to Auburn baseball. So he's a little bit, I guess, somewhat credentialed on the subject. And he's also got some big personal news we'll get him to talk about a little bit. And that's the one, the only, Clint Richardson. What's going on, sir?
How's it going?
What's the J? I didn't even think to ask you that pre-show. What's the J about?
So this is a Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp minor league baseball hat. And this was from a couple of years ago when they actually did a Scrabble appreciation night uniform. And I love this thing. This is awesome. This is one of my favorite hats.
And why is that Auburn baseball appropriate?
It's Thursday. It's been a long couple of weeks, and I'm tired. Don't question me today.
It is. So just to kind of go ahead and remind you guys, we are specifically tonight talking about the College World Series and with a focus, obviously, on Auburn baseball and how they'll do. I do want to give Clint a chance to – he's already posted this on his own social media, and most of you are probably aware of it that follow him. But the man made a big life decision here recently. Where are you now, Clint?
Well, I kind of do miss my wall of helmets behind me, but we're back in Auburn for good.
I hate you. And that's all we have from Clint. No more from him because I'm mad at him now. No, we're very happy that you got to fulfill the dream that many of us have to be back in Auburn, Alabama. And so you are in the midst of moving, in the midst of trying to figure out life there while trying to maintain your new job that you have there as well. And find time to chum it up with schmucks like me and do a little bit of a live stream about baseball.
That's probably the nicest thing we can call you tonight. So,
hey, listen, I've been called worse by myself, especially. So, you know, Autumn says she's upstairs somewhere.
Actually, I think she's actually right above me.
Oh, so there is an upstairs where you are right now. A lot of other people checking in and saying hi. So yes, it's good news for you. Happy for you. We'll probably be seeing you a lot more there, and we'll have to make sure people start really paying attention to the Auburn uniform database.
I get to reignite my role as E2C Network campus correspondent too.
Hey, listen, that's a title not many people want, but you can have it if you want
it. That's the nice terminology. The true wording is Kyle's lackey.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The amount of people that I sometimes will send a message like, "Hey, can you get me this? Can you do that for me? Can you tell me this information?"
We're in the middle of celebrating Monday night at Toomer's, and he's like, "I need photos."
I just needed one. That's all I wanted. I just wanted one photo. That's it. That's all I needed. I wasn't asking for a whole lot, and you got some credit out of it anyway. Let's see. Kevin already throwing out predictions. I think the Auburn Tigers baseball team will beat Ole Miss, Arkansas, or Stanford, and we can beat them too. Listen, I have seen this baseball team do wonders just in terms of predictions that everybody had about them at the beginning of the season. So I'm not going to question their ability to beat anyone at the World Series, but I will put up for question and speculation based on the route they have to go. Who wins, loses. There's a lot that they have to get over to actually even get to the championship series. This is going to be a challenging College World Series, in my opinion. What do you think about it?
I think so, too. There's a lot of good teams here. And, you know, some teams that really had to come through a really tough gauntlet of a bracket and are ultimately upsets to even make it this far. But they're all, I mean, you don't back into Omaha. That
No.
was something that really annoyed me in 2019. I think it was Auburn's first game, or maybe it was the Louisville game, the second one, and the commentators kept acting like Auburn lucked in to making it to Omaha. And again, I don't know how anybody sees the bracket, how this tournament is set up, and think that you got lucky. That's
Yeah.
not how this happens anymore. The College World Series bracket is probably one of the toughest in all of collegiate sports.
I would agree with that statement. I think it is very well rounded. Obviously, a lot cleaner and more classy now that a certain puke orange team is not part of it. And honestly, I mean, we joke about that, but what we heard collectively for instance, the Oregon State fans is how much they enjoyed playing us and experiencing us. Does everybody have bad apples? Of course. I'm thinking of a few of ours right now. I'm probably one of them in your mind. But
yeah, my mind.
Yeah, well, anybody's mind. They're like, oh, that guy.
You are in my mind.
I'm always in your mind, Clint.
No.
I never get rid of it. Neil has an interesting point here. For those of us that are Atlanta Braves fan, which I am, says it reminds him of the 2021 Atlanta Braves team, that being obviously last season. I can see where you make that parallel, Neil. The difference is this is a team, the Atlanta Braves were a team that, kind of flipped the switch when they made some trades in the second half of the season. This Auburn team was a team that lost people as the season went on, and still, whether it got better or things just finally started clicking, I don't know, but I see where you make that parallel. Is it, to me, Clint, it's been the more interesting thing to watch. You lose arguably at the time your best pitcher. Some other players get dinged up here and there, and yet they don't fall apart. Why is that?
I honestly think that just shows the depth that Auburn has had this year. And, we talked about it before, especially on this show, that, Auburn seems to either be really good at pitching and not so good at hitting, or vice versa. And even with Butch Thompson and Tim Hudson as the pitching coaches here, like, pitching's kind of struggled at times, especially when you get deeper into the bullpen. But the last couple of weeks, after a wake up call in the SEC tournament, or just a couple of extra days of rest, like, since the tournament started, they've really handled the pitching well, and it's been really fun to watch. But I think Butch is such an amazing guy and such a great leader that I think it just makes this team that much tighter. And they like to play for each other. They like to keep fighting. They like to pick each other up. Like, this is a close knit team, and it's obvious just watching them.
It is. Auburn's got a comment that Andy and Brad said earlier that Kaysen is the first Auburn player to start for the College World Series in 2 different series. That's a pretty cool thing, and it shows you how long he's been here too.
So they did clarify that as being a fielding starter, because there's another guy in the 94, 97 seasons that was a DH one year and then an outfielder the next. Kaysen at least is center fielder both times they've made it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a cool little stat there. Neil's also clarifying what I said earlier. He is actually correct. I forgot they lost Acuna, Ozuna, and Soroka. Yes, that is true. So, well, listen, I've said it thousands of times this season for baseball that really coming back to baseball started with the 2021 Braves for me, and then this season for obviously Auburn baseball, and with the pandemic and everything shutting things down, you kind of lose track of the things that weren't the utmost of importance to you at the time. But this has been super fun to follow, and I think if everybody hasn't figured it out by now, I'm not going to Omaha as of this moment. So I know I had said I was trying to, and I could have had a way, I had a will, I had an option, but I didn't pull the trigger. But I have not ruled out spending some money if they make it to the championship series and flying out there. But
we were actually just talking about it here. It's going to be a pricey trip. Just, it's not a direct flight to Omaha. Auburn was the last team to qualify, so all the hotels are booked. I know people who have a deep pocketbook and they're staying an hour and a half away.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Especially with gas right now, a 16-hour road trip is not going to be fun.
That is true. That's actually funny, Autumn. Well played. You get a gold. If I could give out gold stars right now, actually, can I give out gold stars? I did something where I starred her comments. I don't know what that does, but anyway, that's funny. Anyway, so let's talk about this a little bit more in detail. And if you guys haven't, please do check out the video where I broke down in that video what you need to know for the College World Series, especially for what it means for Auburn. That gives you some further details. But we want to talk about what's going to happen or what we think is going to happen here. But just a quick overview. 2 brackets. Auburn's in bracket 2. They're in the bracket that includes Stanford, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. Auburn will be playing Ole Miss in their first game, and Stanford and Arkansas will be playing in their first matchup against each other. On the other side, you got Texas A&M playing Oklahoma in game 1, and in game 2, you've got Texas and Notre Dame playing each other. So, Clint, how do you want to do this thing? Do you want to – I know we want to spend a lot of time on Auburn, but do you want to just go ahead and do bracket 1 to start off with and get it out of the way, or would you rather just save that to the end?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with bracket 1, Texas A&M versus Oklahoma. How do you see that first matchup, and how do you maybe see, and you can go with wherever you would like with that, just kind of how you see this side of the bracket turning out?
I think that I think it's going to be a good matchup. It's, of course, an old Big 12 matchup, and there's always a good bit of rivalry there. But I think A&M is just a better team. I think they're a little streakier right now. Oklahoma almost didn't make it this far. That Oklahoma-Florida Super Regional was like, who wants to lose less? Who's going to lose it first?
That's good.
Honestly, it's 2 teams that I did not care to see in Oklahoma. Just not even by talent. Just I'm tired of both of them. I don't want to deal with them. So I think TAMU wins that one.
I've got a feeling that I think you want to talk about hot teams right now. Texas A&M is very much that. After getting beat by Auburn early in the SEC, play, it kind of seemed like Auburn had established themselves. Well, then here comes Texas A&M kind of firing on all cylinders back, along with like Tennessee at the time and stuff like that. So Texas A&M making this tournament is not surprising to me the way their trajectory went. Do they have enough momentum? Do they have enough steam ahead of them to win this whole side of the bracket? I don't know. I think I do like them over Oklahoma in this game. What about Texas Notre Dame? Because that's one I can't get a read on how I should feel about this one.
Well, I mean, I think you have to look at Notre Dame kind of like the 2019 Auburn team. It's been a long time since they've been to Omaha. They came up with a very emotional super regional win. Is it going to be a letdown? Is Notre Dame going to be the 0-2 first team out this year, or are they actually going to make a run? I think they're very talented. I think Texas is a really good team, and Texas is just a deeper team. So I think Texas will get this win. The question is, does Notre Dame pull out the win in the losers bracket and get to survive another day?
Should we all just be rooting for Notre Dame because they did what we all wanted them to do and remove Tennessee from this pool?
They're going to have a lot of support behind them. But
there you go.
This is the weird thing. I was just looking at the bracket, and I knew the 8 teams that were here, but I hadn't really looked at them. And there's not a team name, there's not a school name that I really want to root for outside of Auburn, obviously. But Notre Dame might get that pick just because of what they did. But yeah. I'm so tired of all these other teams.
It would be kind of cool to see probably the 2 teams that most people counted out of this situation, Auburn and Notre Dame, that are here, in my opinion. It would be kind of neat to see the 2 of them end up in the championship game together. Yeah. And I think that would be a really fun one, subverted expectations, completely just threw it in the face of everybody who prognosticates. It would be really fun. But that's stepping way ahead. We'll get there in a little bit. So I know now, see, this is the tricky thing. It's not like in basketball where you can just say this team's going to beat this team. There's so many things that have to happen. Double elimination. Do they play 2 games at the end of the series because, some team is, was undefeated and all that kind of stuff. So walk me through bracket 1 in your mind. How does this end up? Are we talking just straight? So one team runs straight through, or are we talking goes down to the wire?
I just in the way that a baseball softball tournament works like this, I don't see many teams coming out of the losers bracket.
Okay.
Playing with your bats against the wall multiple times again and again, having to win twice over the winning bracket team is really difficult. So I don't out of all these 8 teams, you might see that happen once. I just don't see it happening. So I think it's going to be A&M and Texas fighting this one out, and then probably Notre Dame coming from the losers bracket and losing in game one. They might make it a game two, but I think Texas and Texas A&M are going to be the top dogs to come out of the top bracket.
And, it kind of fits there with two old rivals in two different conferences for now, talking or playing each other, potentially decide who goes to the championship series. Now, I want to point out to you this, and I'm sure you already were aware of this, but obviously in softball, Oklahoma and Texas played each other for the championship. They can't do that here, but they can play who gets in the championship. It would be kind of cool to see that synergy. So there's a part of me that kind of roots for that. Any of that for you?
No. No.
Just flat simple.
Like I said, I'm not excited about Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. I'm not excited about dealing with them moving forward. The Oklahoma softball team will go down as one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate because it's Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And if that was JMU, Michigan, UCLA, Oregon, like, it's going to be more fun. Mm-hmm. But no, I'm tired of them.
Yeah, I get it. I there's not like I said, outside of Notre Dame on that side of the bracket, there's not really a team that I'm happy that I like. Texas is fine, but there's also a part of me that wants full revenge of the SEC for those that have beaten us in Texas. And why we won the series, they took one game for us. So I'd like to see them in a championship game.
Well, and don't forget, we opened the season against Oklahoma in Arlington and lost. So there's a revenge factor if you want to play that card. But no, I think you're right. Like, Notre Dame is really the only quote unquote fan favorite in this part of the bracket. And, I think we're going to get a lot of good baseball regardless.
Neil is lamenting that Texas and Oklahoma will be part of our conference soon. Hey, listen, I just thought of this too. And I know we're in the bracket one here, but it's kind of funny still how all this laid out because there's only 4 SEC teams, but technically you could say there were 6 if this was in the future. But look how it lays out in each bracket. Essentially, if you wanted to still have sides, divisions of the SEC, even with Texas and Oklahoma, you could have the Southwest Conference essentially with Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Texas, and then the traditional SEC with Arkansas, Auburn, and Ole Miss.
Arkansas was in the Southwest too.
I know, but they geographically would make more sense for that. But it's kind of cool when you look at it that way. If Mississippi State or somebody else would have done a little bit better, but yes, they're coming. So get used to it.
They are.
All right. So the way I heard you break that down for bracket one, it looks in your mind, losers bracket doesn't look promising for anybody. So it really comes down to who's going to set themselves up for the best success. Is it Texas A&M or is it Texas? Who do you think is going to come out and be the championship?
So when you get into day 3, 4, 5 of these tournaments, it's all about depth. And I think Texas A&M might be able to go that far. They're a little bit of a younger team. We kind of saw their depth issues when Auburn played them, but I think Texas is much deeper, and they'll be able to pull it out, I think. So I have Texas winning the bracket one.
So you had me going there for a second. I thought you were going to say Texas A&M, but that's who I think as well, Texas. I think Texas is coming out and is going to represent in the championship game over on that side. I think if Texas A&M can maintain their momentum, and when you talked about and you get into these extra days that you're going to be there part of this tournament, even though they're spread out a little bit, unless you're playing that, I said it in the video, there's an opportunity for Auburn to play Saturday, but then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if they somehow got into the losers bracket and then had to work their way. You can't imagine.
That's rough.
You
don't want to do that.
So in my mind, I agree with you. Out of this side, we're talking about Texas. But last question about it, is this a Texas team that was undefeated the entire way, or did they have to take one game from out the losers bracket side?
I can't see anybody coming out of the losers bracket.
So it looks like a Texas maybe sweep of this side of the bracket. Or bracket one. All right.
I mean, it's tough. It's tough to win every game in these. It's baseball. You're going to lose a game or two. But, I mean, you have a chance to be in Omaha for 20 straight days. That's a long, I guess 10 straight days. It's a long time. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's your depth, and if you can pull it out, I think Texas has a better chance of sweeping than A&M does to
Yeah.
come out with one win or one loss.
You talked about being there for 10 straight days. Linda has been working hard on social media to get me to go. And I promised Linda if I could pull it off, I would. But when you're there for 10 days, there ain't no package that's cheap enough for you to be there for that long. So, yeah.
So I made the trip to Oklahoma City for the 2 Women's College World Series that Auburn made in 2015 and 2016. And I watched every single game in person that Auburn played those 2 years. The first year we got lucky. We got lucky in the sense that we didn't miss a game because we were leaving that Sunday regardless, and Auburn just happened to lose. If they had won, they would have played the next day, and we wouldn't have gotten to see it. And then the 2016 year when we lost to Oklahoma in the finals, like we were there for every game, and we were there for maybe 8 days, and it's a long time living out of the hotel, eating out every night. Like it's expensive and it's a long time. Like going to Omaha is like twice as long, and I'm already tired just thinking about it.
It sounds like tons of fun, and I would not have regretted. I would not have regretted going. My pocketbook would have regretted it, but it's it's going to happen at some point. And like I said, I've not ruled out a spur of the moment, very expensive trip if they make it to the series. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. It's one of my favorite sayings. Devin right now is rewatching the Oregon State game to get super excited about this weekend. Yeah, if you want to get hyped, go back and watch that amazing series.
Enjoy the baseball. Lament over the camera work and production.
Oh God, don't even.
That was so bad.
Did we just have like the C group of camera operators or something? I know we were really late.
It was like middle school appreciation week or something. They let the toddlers jump on the production booth.
It was so bad. All right, let's move on to bracket 2, the more important bracket here. We'll start with the Stanford. Yes, thank you. Stanford versus Arkansas.
Comment pork below.
Stanford versus Arkansas. Clint, who do you see winning this first matchup?
Man. Again, I think Arkansas is just a more complete team, but Stanford would have gotten my vote until almost losing it to UConn this weekend. Mm-hmm. But I think Stanford's just a stronger team right now. Ham. Stop pork. Ham. So I think Stanford's going to pull this one out.
I don't know why, but I tend to agree with you here as well. I want to say Arkansas wins this one, mainly from the fact that my hope is that we're going to beat Ole Miss and then get to have a rematch with Arkansas. It's interesting. A lot of times you'll hear the conversation, I don't really want to see the SEC again. The SEC is tough, but there's a part of me that really is just like a glutton for punishment. And I want some revenge too. Like that's what I want. But there's something about this Stanford team, even though they had some trouble with UConn. UConn had a little bit of that magic going on for whatever reason. And I don't know, maybe some of that rubbed off on them spending so much time with them this weekend. So there's my guts telling me to pick Stanford here too. So I don't know why, but I agree with you. It makes me feel sick.
And I think we mentioned it earlier. Like there's a lot of revenge factors if you want to play that game in this bracket for Auburn, especially. Auburn lost 2 out of 3 to Arkansas earlier. Auburn lost 2 to 3 out of Ole Miss earlier this season. But Stanford is who knocked Auburn out of the World Series in 1997 and made Tim Hudson cry into coach's arms. And so there's historic beef with Stanford. And personally, that's the matchup I want to see.
Yeah, that would be fun to see. And we talked about not being super excited about a lot of these teams outside of Auburn. But when you talk about it that way, there is a lot of interconnectivity, whether it's because the SEC, whether it's because of the future of the SEC, whether it's because of the Stanford situation, or you just want to play the other Cinderella, if you want to call them that, like Notre Dame and Auburn seem to be considered at this point. In your mind, and I know we have our orange and blue glasses on, I see all these people make rankings for, re-ranking teams that are left for the College World Series, and consistently Auburn's put in as at 18 with Notre Dame right behind them. Do you agree with that?
No. I think, I mean, let's be honest. Ole Miss was a total disappointment this year, coming off of the #1 ranking. We losing 2 out of 3 to them. We kind of hit them at their best, and then they just kind of like sucked the rest of the year, and then just got hot. Like Ole Miss probably shouldn't have been in the tournament. They were one of the last 4 teams in.
Yep.
So, I'm not really high on Ole Miss. Their fans were begging to fire Mike Bianco all year. So,
we can help them with that.
We can. So there's a lot of weird energy with Ole Miss right now. But no, I think if you really wanted to rank these teams, I think the bottom ones would be Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. I think you could put Auburn at what would that be? 5, 4,
I'd
5,
actually
6?
I'd be fine with Auburn at 5 or 6, just because we've had to overcome a lot.
I think that's more than fair.
Yep.
This Auburn team. I mean, let me look at the schedule again because I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It's only however many games, 60-something games, something like that.
So, this Auburn team last year would have been swept 3 or 4 times this year.
Mm-hmm.
This team this year was not swept at all in any series. So,
which is awesome.
I mean, that's a huge win for any team, but especially after what this team went through last year. And to kind of overcome those demons of last year of being, what was the score? It was like Auburn was like 1-15 in games decided by 1 run.
Couldn't finish.
And then another 4 losses in games decided by 2 runs. And Auburn led into the 8th inning in every single one of those games. And, they found ways to win this year. They found ways to, keep a lead and to finish a game. And I think that's just such a, again, Auburn did not limp into this. Ole Miss did not limp into this. But, Ole Miss admittedly would have limped into the tournament. So,
well, they're here. So, with that being said, does Auburn beat Ole Miss in the first game?
Kyle.
You go ahead and hit. I'm knocking wood right now. We're just talking. This is not like, hey, we got control over this. You ain't going to jinx nobody. What do you think?
It always comes back to bite me. I will say this: I want to see Auburn Stanford in the winners bracket.
That's what you want to see.
So that's how I'm going to word it.
Okay, I can deal with that. That's about, I think, all I'm going to get out of you on that one. I do think Auburn's going to beat, and your wife's blaming you, so there you go.
Not the first time.
Well, isn't that what wives are for? Ooh. Anyway, Auburn versus Ole Miss. I think Auburn wins, and we do see a Stanford matchup. I could see it being Auburn versus Arkansas just as easily, but there's, like I said, there's something about the Stanford team. All right, again, it can get confusing trying to work all this out, but when this thing is done, how confident are you that Auburn stands at the end of this as the representative from bracket 2?
I honestly just don't think Auburn has the depth.
And that's my concern too.
Honestly, we see it time and time again that Auburn can win a 3-game series. Auburn can pull out a couple of really good wins, but the deeper you go in the bullpen, the bullpen can be so hit or miss. We saw it with Trace Bright this weekend. Didn't even make it out of the first inning, which was a weak point of the pitching staff. But then the bullpen goes, 8 2/3 innings without giving up a run, which is probably the brightest. That's the brightest spot that this bullpen has seen in years. So, and then Mason Barnett kind of struggled at the end of his outing on Monday. So it's Auburn's success this weekend or the next couple of weeks is not going to be how the bats go, because I have confidence in this lineup hitting wise. It's how effective are the pitchers going to be? And is Auburn going to make the right moves at the right time? Or are they going to leave a guy out for a little too long and it'll bite you? And we've kind of seen that with Timmy a couple of times this year and the last couple of years is he wants to give his guys one more chance to get out of the at bat or the inning, and it goes poorly. And it's too much of a hill for the offense to overcome. I think Sonny's going to have a really good week. I think Kaysen and Brody are going to have really good outings. Big Bat Bobby's going to do his thing. But if there's any concern with this team, it's the pitching staff.
Oh yeah, and it's what we've and it's more the depth, and there's obvious reasons for that, right? Without Hayden Mullins, there's been a few just kind of not other bad things, but just things that you've had to work through over time there. So I do think that is always going to be the question: can the pitching staff as a whole, but especially the bullpen, hold up? And they did against Oregon State this time. Can they do it for another 10 days in a row? I don't know. And that's what concerns me. So Auburn's success is contingent in my mind upon them winning this first game and staying in the winners column. If they win the first two games, they're going to the championship game.
I would totally agree with that. This is, like we said earlier, it's tough to come out of the losers bracket, but getting into the winners bracket really sets you up well.
Yeah. I think there is a little bit of something about Corey is saying when Auburn's on a hot streak in sports, you better look out because we come firing in on all cylinders and it takes double dribbles to beat us. So wrong sport.
We were at Plainsman when the team returned from Oregon State Tuesday night, and we were just chatting with people, and I mentioned, there's something to be said about going back a second time. We saw it with basketball. We saw it with Bruce, that first time going into the NCAA tournament in 20-something years was tough. Auburn didn't make it very far. Made it into the second round, got bounced by Clemson. The next year, they make it to the Final Four. 2019 was the first time in 20-plus years that Auburn baseball had made it to Omaha. And they go 0-2. They get bounced real quick. And which, again, if you want to make a knock about Butch, it's that he is very experienced in going to Omaha with Mississippi State. He's a very experienced coach and wasn't able to do much more than just go 0-2. Granted, those were very close games. Auburn had many opportunities to win either of those.
Right.
But, now I don't think you're going to have that issue. I think that, after the regional win, Butch made rounds on media because he said that it's championship or bust. And that headline just got legs and people were kind of upset about it. But if you listen to how he said it and what he said, it wasn't a cocky statement. It wasn't, we're going to go win it. It wasn't even, our expectations here are to win every single game we play. It was, why in the world would we step on the field if we don't expect to win? Why would we fight so hard for this tournament if we don't think we can win? And again, if you really listen to what he said, you'll support it too. And I think that mentality from coach down, I mean, these players have it. Some of the players have experience going to this tournament, and that feeds itself. It's a domino effect. And I think that this team, the 2022 team, is going to be a whole lot different than the 2019 team in how they approach practice, how they approach games, how they approach going to the hotel, how they approach going. It's just going to be a different mentality, and I think it's going to set this team up for a lot of success.
I agree. I feel much more confident than I did in 2019, and a lot of it was because I was just happy to be there. And I think that's kind of how Auburn was at that point. It was like, wow, we're here.
Right.
We got to play baseball. Okay. But we're here. And I'm not taking anything away from that 2019 team because they were a great team too. Love them. But this just feels like this is a much different scenario. Now we're predicting all these things, knocking on wood 1,000 times. We're probably jinxing them, whatever, but I just feel like this Auburn team, if it gets into the winners category the entire way through this double elimination, they're making the tournament. It's kind of the same thing with Oregon State. When they won that first game, even though I was worried, I kind of always knew in the back of my mind they were going to win the Super Regional. There was
Right.
just something about it. Felt like even though we lost a little bit of that momentum after Oregon State took that second game, that's kind of what it feels like here. I think if Auburn beats Ole Miss and plays a Stanford, they're definitely moving on and going to beat Stanford. The Arkansas one scares me a little bit because they're one of the better teams of the SEC and they've beaten us twice. But there is something to be said. It's hard to, like they say in football, especially, it's hard to beat a team twice. I can say the same thing. It's probably even harder to beat a baseball team more than, an exponential amount of times after you see them so often. Same thing happens in pro baseball. But so Auburn, I think, is going to make it to the last game of double elimination. I do not think they make it out of it because I think they will lose in second game. I don't know why, but there's my gut predicting it right now is that Auburn will beat Ole Miss, fall to either Arkansas or Stanford, but make it a series. And then the depth, as we discussed, comes into play. And it ultimately is the downfall, keeping them out of the championship series. But if that happens, think how much better that is than the time before. And I'm not saying settle. I'm not, all these people the new slogan these days, Clint, all you've heard is having a 6-6 mentality or whatever it's called. That's not settling. It's just focusing on what the context of a situation is and understanding probably what your ceiling is. The boys and Butch believe their ceiling is national championship, and I believe them. But I, as a commentator on the outside, I can look at this situation and say, hey, I think we can make it to the very end of the double elimination matchup. That's it. What do you think?
I think that's a really, that's a good way to look at it. I think you're being realistic with that. I don't think you're going to get, too far ahead of yourself. But I don't like to get ahead of myself when it comes to Auburn athletics. I'm gonna see how it goes, and we're gonna play it out. And I'm always hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm. So you do not want to drop a prediction?
No, not happening. So this will be my prediction. Okay.
Okay.
If you look back at Auburn's previous 5 trips to Omaha, the first time Auburn made it in 1967, Auburn went 2-2. In 1976 and 1994, Auburn went 0-2. In 1997, Auburn went 1-2. And then, of course, in 2019, Auburn went 0-2. So by those calculations, Auburn should be winning a game this year.
Yeah, I believe that they're going to do a lot better this go around in the College World Series. I just don't know if they can get with the depth issues. If they take at least one loss, I think it's going to be the thing that hurts them.
I wish I had Kevin's confidence.
Listen, you cannot tell Kevin that Auburn ain't going to win the national championship and everything, and I love it. Listen, I we don't see Ben a lot here these days on the E2C network, but for those of you who have been here for a long time will know Ben King, and he's the ultimate Barner. Kevin may take that from Ben. So,
yes, I'll do that. I'll vote for that one.
Ben could not be told that Auburn, didn't, walk on water, but I think Kevin takes that cake. Anyway, he got to say, I got a question. If we make it to that one game, will we see the Big Hurt or Bo? Talking about the championship series is what he's asking there. So does the Big Hurt or Bo come out to support Auburn?
Oh, we know Bo absolutely will be there.
Yeah.
But Frank doesn't really make appearances, and I don't know what his TV schedule looks like. I mean, we're in the middle of MLB season. The draft usually happens around this time, so I guess we're looking at that too. He's probably going to be busy, but I hope that he'll make it. I would love for Frank to embrace Auburn a little bit more than
he's
than
doing that. He's doing that this year a little bit more.
Has he?
Well, in just his social media interactions and stuff, he's been very proactive with, honoring Butch with what they're doing. And I think a lot of that, this is a bigger topic that we've addressed somewhat. There's been not as much give and back and forth between when you compare Bo and Auburn, Barkley and Auburn, and the Big Hurt in Auburn. But now with the statue coming and what if there was ever a rift there, it seems like those, I don't want to call it iciness, but just those friendships are kind of being strengthened as of late. So I would not be shocked to see the Big Hurt for a special game make it out there. So Auburn, if you want the Big Hurt there, make it to that final game. And and then you'll have the Big Hurt there. But yes, I think Bo would probably come out there.
He's with Thoughts, right? Frank.
That sounds right. Yes.
I mean, if you're Frank or if you're Thoughts, you have to let the man go for a day to go watch his team play for a title,
and
right?
It's good publicity too for them. But think they can have him, call in or do a report from the College World Series as part of their coverage for whatever game he was supposed to be covering. I mean, that would be brilliant marketing on their part. So yes, Fox, if that's you, if you've got Frank's contract, let him go. Let him be with us. Let him be with his people. It's time. Statue or not, it's time. The Big Hurt, come home. No more hurting. All love. The big love is what I'm saying now.
So in terms of the crowd, I have a buddy who lives in Atlanta, and he texted me earlier and said, Omaha is going to be well represented with Auburn people because there are so many people in the Atlanta airport. So if you're making this trip, we're all living vicariously through you.
Yeah. I'm living vicariously through my caravan that's leaving tomorrow that I should have been with, but I can't.
Pull a Toy Story and hang off the bumper, and you'll be fine.
But then where am I going to stay? And then
sleep on top of the car. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Listen, I've done worse. You know that I have. So if I can pull it off, but doing what I've done to make stuff like that happen for 10 days, that didn't fly. So I'd be stinking is what we would say. Anyway, I think Clint doesn't want to go as far to say Auburn makes it or not. I have said that I don't think Auburn's going to make it. So in my mind, it's Texas versus probably Arkansas. I'm going to say Arkansas. I think Stanford beats Arkansas, but I think Arkansas comes out ultimately.
Okay.
I don't know why. I know that probably doesn't match up without my prediction. But there's something about, I think our bracket's going to be kind of crazy, whereas the bracket 1 is going to be a little bit boring.
So here, let's do this. I think bracket 1 plays earlier, correct?
Yes.
So who's the first team out of both sides?
First team out of bracket 1, I would agree with you, would be Oklahoma. Yes. I think Notre Dame's going to get at least one to keep themselves moving along.
I think so. I think I can still see Notre Dame winning that loser's bracket game and knocking Oklahoma out. That's how I see it.
And bracket 2? See, it's hard, isn't it? Is it not?
It's either going to be, gosh, I don't want to say that it's either team from game 4, but it's.
He doesn't want to say it.
My brain says it's either going to be Auburn or Ole Miss, but my heart says it's either Ole Miss or Arkansas.
I think first team out is either going to be Stanford or Ole Miss, and that's with me predicting Stanford's going to win the first game. Okay. I think this bracket is so set up for just craziness because, you got the Ole Miss team that was predicted the best in the country. Now they barely got in. You've got Auburn, who was predicted to do nothing, was a surefire in basically, and still is underappreciated. You've got Stanford, who's, probably overlooked a little bit, but is still one of the better teams in the nation. And you got Arkansas, who's been pretty good the entire year.
Well, let's I hope we get to the point that we can watch Arkansas's failed foul ball catch that would have won them a title a couple of years ago. So let's just remind them of that. Like, you guys are cursed here. So
well, so that's how I see it shaking out. I think it's going to be probably Texas versus Arkansas. I think Texas is going to win it this year, and that's what I'm going to predict.
Despite Auburn being here, the teams in this bracket just don't excite me, and I hate to say that because I think we're going to get a lot of good baseball, but just the brand of each school, especially that top bracket, just like if Ole Miss had lost to Southern Miss, I would have been so excited to see Southern Miss here.
Mm-hmm.
If UConn had beaten Stanford, that would have been great. And I don't even know who the top bracket teams. Oklahoma, Florida, no, don't care. Texas A&M, Louisville. I'm glad we don't have to face Louisville again this time.
Yeah, that was, for those of you that don't remember 2019, that was bad.
Screw Tennessee. So good job, Notre Dame. I can't remember. Who did Texas beat?
Texas beat, was it Texas Southern? No.
Was it? No.
Was it? I felt like it was another Texas.
Oh, Texas
school.
beat Eastern Carolina. East Carolina. ECU would have been fun.
Yep. So with what you're saying, let me say this, and I think I'm on the same page with you. There's no true villain, but there's also no true underdog here.
I think that's true, yes. Because, I mean, if you wanted to pick a villain, it's Texas, right?
But I don't, like, to me, I'm like, okay, it's Texas.
Can't pick one.
Yeah. So, hey, Auburn Ellis, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Elvis. Notre Dame would probably get that underdog. No. Notre Dame would get the Cinderella story title just because of what they did in Tennessee. I think Ole Miss does get the underdog title, and then you put Auburn in that 4, 5, 6 category. So,
and that's what I'm saying is, like, there's nobody that truly has that title. You're having to make a case for somebody to have that title, and I think that's why the initial excitement is not as high, because no one's dying to see Tennessee lose. No one's dying to see Eastern Carolina or Southern Miss, shock the world, even though they were a seeded team. But that doesn't mean we're not going to get good baseball. Evidence of that was played by, Auburn and Oregon State being one of the higher seeds, but you saw how competitive that was. I think
what a series.
Wasn't it awesome?
Incredible series. I posted that on Monday night on Twitter. I said, as an Auburn fan, you definitely wanted to host Vanderbilt. That was to host a super regional and to have possibly an easier route to Omaha would have been amazing. But as a baseball fan, that's the series you wanted to see. That's the matchup that we got, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, and we had some great commentary from some Oregon State fans here on our post-game shows that stopped by to say hello. So it was nice. It was a good experience for a team that had to go out there and play at god-awful times, and the fans had to stay up, me here at 2:00 some mornings, but we did it anyway because we were having so much fun with this. It was a great series. And listen, we've had fun with the Auburn Regional, Corvallis Super Regional. We're going to have fun no matter what, just being one of the top 8 teams in the College World Series. And no matter what happens, it doesn't change how proud and how proud we are and how much this team has basically made, again, the point. Predictions in the early season do not matter. Rankings do not matter. What matters is how you are playing at the end of the season. If you get it together at the right time and you have the talent to sustain that momentum that you've done, look what can happen. Auburn is here, in case in point. So
my rant about off-season content. Can't stand it.
I won't get you started on that. Auburn's bringing the spice. Auburn Elvis is bringing the spice tonight with Alabama and Tennessee not having the love. But anyway, all right. As we close out, you guys can get some last-minute comments and questions in. Clint, I know we've talked about you being in Auburn now, and obviously I want you to remind people where they can find you and stuff. But you got anything special for us now that you're back in Auburn, or just trying to get your feet settled?
Oh man, it's still trying to get settled. It's been a hectic week trying to, get the house ready to block those spam comments that you just got.
Hey, listen,
it's not a dust buster, but
it's not a dust buster. It's the same one that always does it.
Oh man. But yeah, it's been a lot of work to kind of get settled in right now. It's still all temporary, but learning a new job has been good. So it's all moving. We're happy to be back home.
And they can find your stuff where?
Check out the Auburn Uniform database at auburnuniforms.com, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Auburn Uniforms. And of course, follow me on Twitter at ClintAU24.
And you guys can find me now on Twitter at Kyle Loomis24. I have changed my Twitter handle just to make it a little bit easier for people to find. When you tell people to type in Tiger Eye 24 and it's spelled TYGER, that tends to get a little confusing. So Kyle Loomis24 is where you can find me now. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. We got some familiar faces from our network, from our general populace here. Yeah, I don't know what Elvis wants you to give every bit of information here.
Can we do the Dustbuster story real quick?
By request. Okay. All right. So I mean, you were here for it, weren't you?
It was like the first time, maybe the second time I had ever done one of these lives with you. And some random bot jumps in and leaves this comment about grandpa
Careful.
sticking
Careful.
grandpa placing a dustbuster vacuum where
the sun don't shine.
Where the sun don't shine. And it was funny as crap.
It was so funny and so random, and I didn't know what to do with it at the time. And so now we have a War Dustbuster t-shirt in the store. You can, the link's in the description. People asked for it. And so I said, look, and you asked for it. There it is. So
have you sold any by chance?
I need to go look. There's a counter for me to look at that type of stuff. And I need to go find out. I don't think so, but listen, if people request it,
they come in stickers too. Buy a sticker and laugh with your friends, because
there you go. Put it on your laptop so people, and then you have a conversation starter for next time. Question as we kind of close out, Clint, will we see a uniform change with any sport next year?
Confirmed, no. I expect we'll see new basketball uniforms this year. Basketball's been on a 3-year rotation. This was year 3. They should be done. I expect baseball and softball might get new uniforms, not this upcoming season, but the next. That would complete a 4 or 5 year cycle. And then, you never know what to expect with Harsin and football. So I expect we'll see something different for football this year. Hopefully orange mask permanently.
White face mask, not permanently. No, we had this conversation. I'm good with the face mask for special things. I think, like we talked about, white face mask for your big away game, non-conference, or what, if you have one, or your big non-conference. The orange ones for one big game at home or something like that. I think they're great in terms of seeing them one time a year. That's all I want.
Hey, getting Kyle to agree that any uniform change is positive has been such a huge win. So
they are lucky they did the white face mask at the Penn State whiteout, and I was like, I'm down now, because that was the one thing, because it completed the stormtrooper look, as I call it. So that's what it took to get me on board with it.
So going back to that. I was told a couple of years ago that Auburn was supposed to be getting a new throwback uniform for baseball. I'm going to say that it's just, more supply chain issues that it didn't happen this year. Right. Hopefully that happens next year, but when it's been delayed this long, they probably just cancel it. So we'll see what comes around the corner for that. Pull up.
You want to take this real quick before we leave?
Yeah. So I didn't mention this earlier, but every year we do a crazy concept uniforms post on the AUD, and this year's are all but done. I have one left that I'm trying to figure out how to make it work.
That tells me it's really, really weird.
It's difficult. I love the idea. I don't have a concept in my head. And then of course, 2 weeks it's been shelved. So, life got in the way, but when they're back,
I got it. Don't you worry.
with the baseball team continuing, once the season's over, probably a week after the season's over, I'll post a season review, just showcasing all the the uniform records by every team. We'll upload everything to the website and the yearly breakdowns, and the website, or the review article will just have any tidbits that happen throughout the year. It's more for me than it is for anybody else, like most of the site. But then probably mid-July, I'll publish the concept uniforms. So awesome. It's almost done. There's some really good designs here.
Yeah, it's always entertaining. I just don't want to see any reality come to it.
Well, Corey wants a hockey uniform video. I actually recently just bought one of the hockey uniforms from the team, one of the customized ones, and it's in storage now. So, Corey, help me buy a house, and I can get them back out, and we'll be good. So
good luck in this economy and in that market that you're in. So,
hey, pre-approved today, so we're good.
Well, look at there. There you go. Ready to spend money we all don't have, eh?
Right.
Anyway, that's fun. That's good. You know, we were probably going to do at least another segment or two about hockey stuff. We've had conversations with, I forget the title of the gentleman, but he has expressed interest in us doing something in the future with him. So we'll have some more hockey stuff here going on. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Great crowd as always, great interaction and questions. And I hope you guys are excited for the College World Series. We will be watching along. Reminder, we will be doing post-game shows after each game. When we get to the championship series, if Kyle decides to fork over oodles and noodles of money and goes out there, don't count on it. But if he does, then we'll address that then. But plan on us doing post-game shows right after each of the games. I hope you guys
and they won't be at 3 a.m.
Thank goodness, because Kyle, my sleep schedule was just way off. But anyway, thank you guys.
I had to start my new job that Monday, so that was rough.
I was thinking about that for you. You were in a pretty bad spot in terms of your fandom and your reality.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for being here, hanging out with us. Smash that like button on the way out and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you haven't. Until we talk to you guys again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.